He should have been on his knees, hands behind his head, waiting for cuffs. Instead, he was smiling at me. The street was sealed off, clean lines of barricades, flashing red and blue lights, painting everything in sharp pulses. Rain had passed an hour ago, but the asphalt still held the memory of it, slick and reflective. Every movement doubled in the ground beneath us. Every mistake magnified. Controlled environment. That's what we call it. Nothing moves without permission. Nothing escalates. Nothing surprises you. That's the theory. Dexter Vale leaned against the barrier like it belonged to him, one boot hooked casually over the lower rail. He didn't match the scene. Not the tension, not the order. He looked like he'd wandered into the wrong story and decided to stay anyway. Restricted zone, I said, holding up my badge. Step back. He didn't look at it. He looked at me. Slow, deliberate, like I was the thing he was evaluating. I hate alphas. That's not bias, it's experience. I've spent years watching them. How easily they lean into instinct. How quickly situations spiral when they do. The system exists for a reason. Protocol exists for a reason. Because without it, things break. Am the first? He said, tilting his head slightly. Or are you just hoping I am? His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried. Low, steady, threaded with something that pressed at the edges of perception. I kept my expression neutral. Dexter Vale, I said, switching to formal tone, you are currently in violation of Pack Interaction Protocol 7B. This area is under inspection. You will step back immediately or face detainment. There it was. Clear, precise, final. He smiled wider. Not mocking, not quite. Interested. 7B, he repeated, like he was tasting it. You memorized that one, or is it your favorite? I don't have favorites. That's a shame. He pushed himself off the barrier, straightened, and then he stepped closer. My body reacted before I could stop it. A sharp, instinctive tightening under my ribs. A flicker of heat I didn't ask for. My pulse ticked up. Just enough to notice. I locked it down immediately. Years of training, discipline, control. Cold is safe. Cold keeps things in place. Stop, I said, sharper now. He did exactly where I needed him to. Not too close, but close enough that I was aware of him in a way I didn't like. Up close, he was worse. Not bigger, though he was, but present. Like gravity had shifted, and I was standing in it. You don't like alphas, he said. Not a question, a statement. I didn't blink, didn't react, didn't give him anything. He watched me anyway. Then he huffed out a quiet breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Yeah, he said softly. That tracks. I'm not here to discuss my preferences, I replied. You're interfering with an active inspection. Interfering? He glanced past me, toward the line of officers further down the street. Looks pretty under control to me. It is. Which is why you're leaving. He shifted his weight, hands sliding into his pockets like he had nowhere else to be. Or? He asked. Or? I detain you. Silence stretched. The lights flickered across his face. Blue, then red, then something in between. For a second, his expression changed. Not the smile, something sharper beneath it. And then it was gone. You could try, he said. Not a threat, not a challenge, just a fact. I stepped forward this time, closed the distance deliberately. You're not as untouchable as you think, I said. His gaze dropped, briefly, to my mouth, then back to my eyes. That's the thing, he murmured. I don't think I am. Something in that answer didn't line up. Most of them, alphas like him, lean into the illusion. Power, control, dominance. They wear it like armor. He didn't. He wore something else. Awareness. And that was worse. Then you understand the consequences, I said. I understand the system. He corrected. That's not the same thing, isn't it? I didn't answer. Didn't need to, because this wasn't a debate. It was a violation. Last warning, I said. Step away. He looked at me again, longer this time, not pushing, not pressing, just looking, like he was trying to figure out where the cracks were. You ever wonder, he said quietly, why your reports always end the same way? My chest tightened, not visibly, internally. That's not your concern. No, he agreed easily. It's yours. I felt it again. That flicker, not instinct this time. Something else, annoyance, irritation, something dangerously close to curiosity. I shut it down. You're done here, I said. For a moment, I thought he would push again, break the line, force the arrest. Instead, he stepped back, one step, then another, hands still in his pockets, posture loose, like he'd already decided how this would end. All right, Inspector, he said. I'll go, just like that. No resistance, no escalation. It should have felt like a win. It didn't. He turned, walking down the wet street like the barriers didn't apply to him, like the lights weren't meant for him, like the entire scene had been set for someone else. Dexter, I called. He paused. Didn't turn around. You're under review, I said. This isn't over. He tilted his head slightly, considering that. Then he glanced back over his shoulder. That smile again. Calm, unbothered, too calm. Good, he said, a beat. Then, almost like an afterthought, maybe you'll finally see it. My jaw tightened. See what? This time, he did turn, fully, met my gaze, and for the first time since I'd arrived, the smile faded just enough to let something real show through. Maybe you're enforcing something you don't understand. The words landed harder than they should have, because I did understand. I built my life on understanding, on rules, on structure, on knowing exactly where everything stood. He didn't wait for a response, didn't need one. He just turned and walked away. No rush, no fear, no hesitation, like he knew I wouldn't stop him. And the worst part? I didn't. I stood there, watching him disappear past the lights, past the barriers, past the neat, controlled lines of the world I trusted. My pulse was still too fast, my body still too aware. I exhaled slowly, forcing everything back into place. Control, order, clarity. I pulled up his file on my tablet. Dexter Vale, repeated violations, non-compliant, high-risk interaction pattern. I added a new note. Subject demonstrates calculated disregard for protocol, displays unusual psychological influence, potential destabilizing factor. I hesitated for half a second, then added, recommend escalation. I closed the file. Cold again, steady again. That was what mattered. Not him, not the way he looked at me, not the way my instincts reacted like I'd forgotten who I was. He was just another case, another problem, another alpha who thought the rules didn't apply. I'd dealt with worse. I always did. And next time, I wouldn't let him walk away, even if a small, quiet part of me already knew. He hadn't run, he'd left, like he chose to, like he was waiting for something, like this wasn't over, and I hated that he was right. By morning, everything looked perfect again. That's the problem with this place. You walk in after a night like that, after tension, noise, instincts brushing too close to the surface, and the building just erases it. Glass walls, steel frames, white light that doesn't flicker, doesn't hesitate, no shadows deep enough to hide anything, no room for doubt, or at least, that's what it's designed to feel like. I stepped through security, badge scanned, posture already set, controlled, neutral, untouchable. Morning, Inspector, the front desk beta said. I nodded once. No pause, no conversation. Routine is safety. The elevator ride was silent. Reflective panels on all sides, my own image staring back at me from 3 different angles. Clean lines, straight shoulders, no sign of the pulse spike from last night, no trace of the way my body had reacted when Dexter stepped too close. Good, that's how it should be. By the time the doors opened to the inspection floor, I was already back in position. Liam, Marcus, of course. He stood near the central glass wall, arms loosely crossed, posture relaxed in the way only someone fully confident in their authority can afford. Alpha, mid-40s, controlled dominance, never loud, never obvious, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything because the system already does it for him. "You filed late," he said, not accusatory, just noted. "There was an active situation," I replied. His gaze lingered on me a second longer than necessary. "Assessing, measuring, Dexter Vale," he said. I didn't react. "Repeated violations," I confirmed. "Non-compliant." "I've flagged him for escalation." Marcus hummed softly, like he was considering a detail no one else could see. "Good," he said finally. "Keep it clean." Clean. That word again. Always clean. "No complications," he added. "We don't need another situation." Another. I didn't ask. You don't ask Marcus to clarify. If something needs to be said, he'll say it. If he doesn't, it means you're not meant to know. "Understood," I said. He gave a small nod and moved on, already shifting his attention to something else. Someone else. The system flows through him. That's what makes him effective. That's what makes him dangerous. I turned toward my station. Ellie was already there. Of course she was. She always arrived before everyone else. Quiet, precise, almost invisible if you weren't looking for her. Beta, late 20s, sharp eyes behind a screen she rarely looked away from. People underestimated her. I didn't. "Morning," she said, without looking up. "Morning." I dropped into my chair, pulling up the Vale file. The name alone was enough to tighten something under my ribs. I ignored it. Data first. Always data. "Busy night?" Ellie asked. "Routine." She glanced at me then. Brief. Too brief to challenge directly. Long enough to say she didn't believe me. "Right," she said. I expanded the report. Violation logs filled the screen. Timestamps, locations, cross-referenced incidents. At first glance, it looked exactly like what it should be. Random, disruptive, unpredictable. But that wasn't how Dexter had felt. He hadn't been random. He'd been precise. I scrolled. 7B, 9C, 11, repeated. Not just repeated. Clustered. I slowed. Looked closer. "Ellie," I said. She hummed in response. "Pull cross-case data on Vale's violations." "It's already linked," she said, tapping her screen. "You just have to." "I know." I adjusted the filters, removed noise, focused on pattern. The lines shifted, and suddenly, it wasn't random anymore. Every violation intersected with Omega-related protocols, interaction restrictions, movement limitations, protective oversight, all of it. Every time. I leaned back slightly. "That's selective," I murmured. Ellie didn't answer immediately. Then, carefully, "Yeah." I looked at her. She was watching me now. Not the screen. Me. "You see it," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. I turned back to the data. "Correlation doesn't imply intent," I said. "That's not what I meant." I ignored that. Kept scrolling. Different cases. Different locations. Same pattern. Always tied to Omegas. Always. "You don't find that interesting?" Ellie asked. "Interesting isn't relevant." She let out a small breath. Almost a laugh, but not amused. "Okay," she said. Then, "relevant." I didn't respond. Didn't need to, because I already knew what she was pointing at. And I didn't like it. "Look at enforcement rates," she added, softer now. "Same protocols." I hesitated, just for a second. Then, I pulled the data. Numbers populated the screen. Clean, organized, objective, and wrong. My jaw tightened. "That's askew," Ellie said. "Variance," I corrected. "It's consistent. It's contextual." She tilted her head slightly. "Is it?" I exhaled slowly. "This isn't our function," I said. "We enforce. We don't reinterpret." Ellie held my gaze, longer than usual. "You ever wonder," she said, voice almost too quiet to register, "why enforcement always leans the same direction?" There it was. The question, the one you're not supposed to ask. I shut the file halfway. Not closed, just reduced. It doesn't, I said. She didn't look convinced. You didn't check enough cases, I added. I did. Silence. Tight. Uncomfortable. This isn't speculation, I said. This is structure. Ellie's fingers hovered over her keyboard, then stilled. Right, she said finally, and just like that. She stepped back. Conversation over. That's how it works here. You push. You meet resistance. You stop. I reopened the Veil file. Focused. Cold. Professional. He's a violator. That's the conclusion. Not a pattern. Not a signal. Not. Maybe you're enforcing something you don't understand. The words slipped in before I could stop them. I clenched my jaw. No. Irrelevant. Unverified. External influence. I flagged another incident. Added supporting notes. Structured. Clean. Logical. Everything in its place. That's how it works. That's how it has to work. Because if it doesn't, if the system isn't what it claims to be, then every report I've ever filed, every decision, every enforcement action, I pushed the thought down hard. Not useful, not productive, not allowed. I finalized the update, submitted it, watched the system accept it without hesitation. Of course it did. It always does. Ellie shifted beside me, quiet again. Back to her work. Marcus's voice carried faintly from across the floor. Controlled, measured, absolute. Everything exactly where it should be. Perfect. Clean. And for the first time, it didn't feel right. Just for a second. A flicker. A crack so small no one else would see it. I stared at the data again, then closed the file. Cold. Steady. Back in control. Dexter Vale was a problem. That's all he was, and I was going to solve him, before he made me question anything else. By the time we got the call, the city had already shifted into that late-hour silence that isn't quiet. It's just waiting, illegal gathering, possible unregistered pack activity, warehouse district. I should have felt routine. Instead, I felt alert, not fear, not exactly, just a sense that this wasn't going to stay clean. Team in position, one of the officers said over comms. I adjusted my jacket, the fabric settling tight across my shoulders. Everything exactly where it should be. Equipment checked. Authority clear. Control. Move in, I said. The warehouse loomed ahead. Dark. Windows blacked out. Rust crawling along the edges like something alive. The air smelled damp. Metallic. Threaded with something sharper underneath. Instinct. Too many people in one space. Too many emotions. Too many alphas. The doors opened with a low, dragging sound. Inside, dim light, scattered figures, tension snapping tight the second we crossed the threshold. There it was, a cluster of bodies pulling apart instinctively. Alphas, straightening, shoulders tightening, eyes sharpening. Omegas, stepping back, shrinking in on themselves. The space around them suddenly too exposed. The dynamic hit all at once. Heavy, immediate. I stepped forward. Inspection, I said, voice cutting through the room. Everyone stays where they are. Movement slowed, not stopped, never stopped completely. A few alphas shifted their weight like they were deciding whether to push. They didn't. Uniforms help with that. Authority, structure, fear of consequence. IDs, one of the officers called out. The process began, messy, always messy, because this isn't a clean world. It just pretends to be. I moved deeper into the space. Scanning, cataloging, assessing, unregistered gathering, multiple protocol violations. Exactly what we were here for. Exactly what I should have expected. And then, I saw him. Dexter Vale was leaning against one of the support pillars, arms crossed, head slightly tilted, like he'd been watching the whole thing unfold, like he'd been waiting. My chest tightened. Not instinct. Not this time. Recognition. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered under my breath. He didn't move when I approached. Didn't flinch. Didn't even pretend to be concerned. You're late, he said. I stopped a few feet in front of him. This is an active inspection, I said. You're interfering again. I'm observing, he corrected. You're in violation. That depends on who's writing the report. My jaw tightened. Step away from the group. He glanced past me, toward the officers separating individuals, checking IDs, marking names, then back to me. You're going to process them, he said. That's how this works. Yeah, he murmured. I figured. Something in his tone shifted, subtle, but enough. Before I could respond, a sharp sound cut across the space. A stumble. I turned. One of the officers had grabbed a young Omega, too rough, fingers digging into his arm as he tried to pull away. I said, "Stay still," the officer snapped. The Omega stammered, panic already creeping into his voice. The room reacted instantly. Alphas stiffened. Omegas shrank further back. The balance tipped. This is how it starts. Always. I stepped forward. Release. Dexter moved first. Fast. Too fast. He was there in a second, hand closing around the officer's wrist, not aggressive, not violent, but firm enough to stop the motion cold. Easy, Dexter said. Low. Controlled. The officer froze. Everyone did. Because that wasn't allowed. Step back, I ordered sharply. Now. Dexter didn't look at me. His focus stayed on the Omega. Hey, he said quietly. You're fine. The Omega nodded too quickly. Breath uneven. Eyes wide. I'm just checking. I know, Dexter said. Just breathe. Something in the way he said it. Steady. Grounded. Cut through the panic. Faster than protocol ever did. That irritated me more than it should have. Dexter, I snapped. You're interfering with an inspection. Now he looked at me. Slowly. Calm. And the first? He asked. You're breaking procedure. Procedure, he echoed. The officer tried to pull his arm free. Dexter let go immediately. No resistance. No escalation, like he'd already made his point. I stepped closer, placing myself between him and the group. That's your last warning, I said. Is it? He replied. I lowered my voice. You're destabilizing the situation. He studied me, not the room, not the officers, me, he said quietly, I'm stopping it from getting worse. That's not your role. Whose is it? Mine. That's the answer. It should have been automatic. Clear. Instead, I hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, and he saw it. Of course he did. His gaze sharpened. Something flickering there. Interest, maybe, or recognition. You really think this is protection? He asked. My pulse spiked. I forced it down. Yes, I said. He exhaled slowly, almost disappointed. That's the problem. I stepped forward, closing the gap again. You don't get to decide that. His head tilted slightly. Don't I? Dexter. My voice came out tighter than I intended. Step back. Now. He held my gaze for a second longer. Then, he smiled. Not mocking, not smug, just certain. You're going to process them, he said again. Write your clean report. Close the case. That's the job, and you won't question it. That's not relevant. It is, he said. Quiet. Firm. It's the only thing that is. Something twisted in my chest. I ignored it. Behind me, the officers had regained control. IDs checked, names logged, the situation stabilizing again, order restored, exactly as designed. Inspection continues, I said, turning slightly to signal the team. Dexter stepped back. One step, then another, same as last time. No resistance, no fight, which somehow felt worse. Dexter Vale, I said, without turning fully, you are now officially interfering with enforcement operations. This will be added to your file. Good, he said lightly. I looked at him. Is that supposed to mean something? He met my gaze, and for a second, just a second, the ease dropped. Something real surfaced underneath. You really don't see it, he said. Not accusation, not anger, just Fact. My jaw tightened. See what? He held my gaze, long enough to make it uncomfortable, long enough to make my instincts shift again, pulling, reacting, aware in ways I refused to acknowledge. Then he stepped back into the shadows. Exactly, he said, and just like that, he was gone. No rush, no chase, no reason to stop him. I stood there, tension still coiled under my skin, the echo of his presence lingering longer than it should have. Behind me, the system moved on, processing, recording, closing, everything working exactly as intended, and for the second time, something about it felt off, not broken, not yet, just misaligned. I exhaled slowly, forcing the feeling down. Control, order, clarity, that's what matters. Dexter Vale was a variable, an irritant, a disruption, and disruptions get handled. They always do. Even if, for a moment, it felt like he wasn't the one breaking the system. It felt like he was pointing at something already cracked, and I hated that I couldn't unsee it. The report should have taken 20 minutes, 40. If I included cross-references, it took 3 hours. I sat in the same position the entire time, back straight, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on the screen like if I moved, something might shift with me. The office was quiet, not empty, never empty, but controlled. The low hum of systems, soft keyboard taps, the kind of silence that doesn't allow mistakes. Glass walls reflected everything, me included, still composed, still in control. That's what it looked like. The report template filled itself as I worked. Structured fields, predefined categories, conclusions that always aligned with the input, clean, consistent, predictable. I entered the data from the warehouse inspection, names, violations, observations, everything exactly where it should be, except... I paused, scrolled back, then forward again. The numbers didn't change. They never do. That's the thing about systems. They don't lie, but they also don't explain. I leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing. Run comparative enforcement rates, I said. Ellie didn't look up. Which protocols? 7B, 9C, 11A. A beat. Then her fingers moved. Fast. Precise. The screen beside mine lit up with parallel data. She didn't say anything. Didn't need to. I saw it. Again. Same skew. Same direction. Omegas flagged more frequently. Processed faster. Escalated sooner. Alphas. Warnings. Delays. Secondary reviews. I exhaled slowly. That's incomplete, I said. Ellie glanced over. It's full data set. It's missing context. Like what? Behavioral variance. Risk indicators. Prior records. It's normalized, she said quietly. Of course it was. I pulled up another layer, then another, adjusted parameters, filtered out anomalies, cleaned the data, removed noise. The pattern stayed, persistent, uncomfortable, wrong. I sat there for a second longer than necessary. Then I closed the comparative panel. That's not relevant to this case, I said. Ellie didn't respond immediately. Then, right. That word again. Soft. Careful. Like she was choosing not to push. I appreciated that, more than I should have. Pull Vale's full interaction map. I said. She did. A network of lines spread across the screen. Contacts, locations, flagged incidents. Messy. Except it wasn't. Not really. Because the connections weren't random. They clustered, tight, focused, always around the same type of case. Omega-related, every time. I stared at it. You see it, Ellie said again. I didn't answer. Didn't confirm. Didn't deny. Because if I did, it would make it real, and I wasn't ready for that. It doesn't change the violation, I said instead. No, she agreed. It doesn't. Silence stretched between us. Then, softer, it changes the reason. I looked at her. Really looked this time. She wasn't challenging me. She wasn't pushing. She was waiting, like she'd already gone through this part, like she knew exactly where it led. That's not our function, I said. There it was. The line, the rule, the thing that keeps everything in place. We enforce, I continued. We don't interpret. Ellie held my gaze for a second longer. Then she nodded. Got it. And, just like that, she stepped back again. I turned back to my report. Finished the last sections. Summary. Conclusion. Recommendation. Subject demonstrates consistent non-compliance. Escalation justified. I hovered over the submit field. Just for a second. Then, Inspector, Marcus. I didn't turn immediately. Didn't need to. I could feel him behind me. Presence. Control. Expectation. I finalized the report. Sent it. Then turned. Yes. He stepped closer, hands loosely at his sides, posture relaxed in that precise way that always meant something underneath it wasn't. You're spending a lot of time on one file, he said. It's a repeated offender. That's already established. His gaze flicked briefly to my screen, then back to me. Don't overcomplicate it. I'm not. A small pause. Then, you're very good at what you do, Liam. That wasn't praise. Not really. It was positioning. I stayed still. Efficient, he continued. Precise. You don't get distracted. I follow protocol. Yes, Marcus said. A beat. That's why you're valuable. Something about the way he said it. Not what, but how. Settled wrong. You see things clearly, he added. Without bias. Without bias. I almost said something. Didn't. Close the veil case, Marcus said. It wasn't a suggestion. It's already escalated. Good. Then it's done. There are pattern inconsistencies, I said, before I could stop myself. Marcus's expression didn't change, but the room did, just slightly, like something tightened under the surface. Inconsistencies? He repeated. Data alignment across enforcement rates. Not your scope. Flat. Immediate. Final. I held his gaze. Shouldn't it be? Silence. Sharp this time. Marcus stepped closer, not invading space, just narrowing it. That's not your role, he said. There it was. Clear, simple, controlled. You enforce the system, he continued. You don't question its structure. Something in my chest tightened, harder this time. And if the structure is flawed? I asked. I shouldn't have. I knew that the second the words left my mouth, Marcus's gaze sharpened. Not anger. Worse. Disappointment. You're not here to fix anything, he said quietly. You're here to maintain order. Order? Always order. You've been given a position most Omegas don't get, he added. There it was. Subtle. Clean. Precise. You operate above instability, he continued, because you don't let it affect you. A pause. Then. Don't start now. I felt it then. Clear. Unavoidable. Not instinct. Not reaction. Understanding. I wasn't just part of the system. I was useful to it. Because I didn't question. Because I didn't push. Because I didn't feel. I understand my role, I said. Marcus studied me for a second longer, then nodded. Good. He turned, walked away. Conversation over, just like that. I stood there, staring at my screen, at the report I'd just submitted, at the data I hadn't included, at the pattern I hadn't acknowledged. My hands were steady, my breathing controlled, everything exactly as it should be, except, if the system wasn't neutral, if the enforcement wasn't balanced, if the protection protocols were actually, no, I shut the thought down. Hard, immediate, not productive, not provable, not, maybe you're enforcing something you don't understand. I closed the file, locked the screen, got up. I'm heading out, I said. No one stopped me. No one questioned it. Because I never leave early. Because I never break routine. Because I'm predictable, reliable, clean. My apartment was exactly the same. Minimal, ordered, no clutter, no distractions, no space for anything unnecessary. I stood in the doorway for a second, looking at it. Everything in its place, everything controlled, everything quiet, too quiet. I moved inside, setting my tablet down on the counter. Didn't turn on the lights right away. Let the city glow filter in through the glass instead, soft, distant, detached, like it wasn't part of me, like I wasn't part of it. I leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. My chest felt tight, not panic, not exactly, just pressure. If the system was wrong, if the data wasn't just noise, if the patterns meant something, then every report I'd ever filed, every decision, every enforcement action, I pressed my palms flat against the counter. Grounding, control, I follow protocol, I said out loud. The words sounded solid, reliable, safe. I repeated them once more. I follow protocol. Silence answered. And for the first time, it didn't feel like enough. They assigned him to me like a resource, not a partner, not a liability, a tool, which should have made it easier. It didn't. Say that again, I said, because I was sure I'd misheard. Marcus didn't even look up from his tablet. You'll be working with Dexter Vale. No, the word came out flat, immediate, unfiltered. That alone should have told him something was wrong. It didn't. This isn't a request, Marcus said calmly. We have a series of Omega disappearances. He's already connected to the same network points. He's violating the same points, I corrected. Exactly. That wasn't agreement. That was dismissal. He's destabilizing inspections, I said. He interferes with procedure. He also knows where to be. A beat, and when. I held his gaze. You're pairing me with a repeat offender. I'm pairing you with information. That's not how this works. Marcus finally looked up. That's exactly how it works. Silence settled between us. Tight, controlled. And you're assigning me because… What? I said. I'm the least likely to tolerate him? No, Marcus said. A pause. Because you're the most likely to control him. I almost laughed. Almost. That's not how alphas work. Then it's a good thing you're not one. There it was again. Subtle. Clean. Sharp. I straightened. If he interferes, you'll handle it, Marcus said. Like you always do. No hesitation. No doubt. Just expectation. Briefings in 5, he added, already moving on. Try not to make this complicated. Too late. The city looked different from the patrol vehicle. Not cleaner. Just segmented. Zones marked by invisible lines. Who belonged where, who was allowed to move, who wasn't. Control mapped into space. Comfortable? A voice said from the passenger seat. I didn't look at him. I didn't agree to this. Dexter leaned back, one arm draped lazily along the window frame like this was a ride he'd chosen. Yeah, he said. I got that impression. You're not part of enforcement. And yet… Here I am. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. You follow my lead, I said. You don't interfere. You don't engage unless I authorize it. He turned his head slightly, studying me. You always this fun to work with? I'm not here to entertain you. Shame. I pulled the vehicle to a stop at the edge of a restricted block. Patrol units were already in position, lights flashing low, controlled, movement contained. Stay in the car, I said. Dexter didn't move. Seriously? He asked. Yes. That's your plan? My plan, I said, unbuckling, is to do my job. I stepped out, didn't check if he followed, didn't need to. I knew he would. Of course he did. Footsteps behind me. Unhurried, unconcerned. Missing Omega, he said as he caught up. Third one this month. I know the case. Do you? I stopped, turned. Don't start. I'm not starting anything, he said easily. Just wondering how much they told you. Everything relevant. He smiled. That same expression, like he already knew the answer. Right. We moved into the zone. Officers nodded as we passed. Recognition, respect, structure holding everything in place. Dexter didn't get those looks. He got something else. Awareness. Tension. They felt him, even when he wasn't doing anything. Especially then. We reached the building. Low rise, sealed access, flagged for irregular movement patterns. Entry logs show exit at 2:13, I said, pulling up the data. No forced access, no witnesses. Voluntary, Dexter said. That's the report. And you believe it? I believe the data. He stepped closer. Not into my space, not pushing, just near. Data doesn't tell you why. It tells me what. Yeah, he said quietly. That's the problem. I ignored that, focused. Stay here, I said. I'll handle the interior. You sure you don't want me to? No. He exhaled, soft, almost amused. Control issues, he murmured. Protocol. Same thing, right? No. I stepped past him, entered the building. It was empty. Too empty. Not abandoned, maintained, cleaned, organized, like someone had erased presence. I moved through the rooms, scanning, logging, mapping. No signs of struggle, no disruption. Everything exactly as it should be, which made it worse. I stepped back outside. Dexter was leaning against the patrol car. Of course he was. You're not even pretending to help, I said. You told me to stay. That doesn't mean disengage. He shrugged. I'm following your lead. That shouldn't have irritated me. It did. Nothing inside, I said. No evidence of coercion. Yeah, he said. I stilled. You already knew that. I had a feeling. That's not admissible. No, he agreed, but it's usually right. I stepped closer. You don't get to operate on instinct here. His gaze shifted, focused, sharp. You think that's what I'm doing? What else would it be? A pause, then. You're waiting for me to push, he said. I frowned. What? To do the alpha thing, he continued. Pressure, presence, make you react. I'm not waiting for anything. You are. His voice wasn't louder, but it landed. You're braced for it. I held his gaze, unmoving. I'm prepared for variables. Same difference. No. Silence. Tight. Charged. Then. Go on, he said. What? Say it. I don't know what you. You're waiting for me to dominate the situation, he said calmly. Push you. Override you. My jaw tightened. I'm waiting for you to be predictable. He blinked, then laughed. Actually laughed. Short, sharp, real, predictable? He echoed. That's what you want? Yes. Why? So I can control the outcome. Of course you can. I ignored the tone. Are you going to comply or not? I asked. With what? The structure of this operation. He tilted his head. Considering, then. You want me to act like every other alpha you've dealt with, he said. I want you to follow protocol. Same thing. No, it's not. He stepped closer. Again, not pushing, not forcing, just closing the space. Then what do you expect? He asked quietly. I met his gaze. Steady, cold. I expect you to stop making this harder than it needs to be. A beat, then. Boring, he said. I blinked. What? Predictable, controlled, clean. He shrugged. It's boring. That's the point. Yeah, he said. I figured. Silence stretched again. Different this time. Less sharp. More. Something else. I became aware of it slowly. The space between us. The lack of pressure. The absence of that instinctive alpha push I'd spent years anticipating. He wasn't trying to override me, wasn't trying to control the interaction, wasn't anything I expected, and that was worse, because I didn't know how to read it. Why are you here? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Then, because someone's making people disappear, he said, and you're looking in the wrong direction. That's not your call. No. He agreed. But it's still true. I exhaled slowly. You don't have proof. Not yet. Then you have nothing. His gaze held mine. Steady, unshaken. Then, let's find it. Something in that, not the words, but the way he said them, shifted, just slightly. I stepped back, re-establishing distance, control. We follow procedure, I said. He nodded once. Sure. A pause. Then, lead the way, Inspector. There was something under that, not mockery, Not defiance. Something closer to interest. I turned away first, because standing there, trying to define it, felt like a mistake. We moved back toward the vehicle. Same patrol, same city, same system, everything exactly where it should be. Except now, there were two of us in it, and for the first time, I wasn't sure which one of us was more dangerous. The archives don't smell like paper. They smell like nothing. No dust, no age, no trace of the people they record, just temperature-controlled air and rows of sealed systems. Clean, silent, efficient, like the truth. If you believe the system. Cozy. Dexter murmured behind me. I didn't turn. Restricted access, I said, scanning my badge. You're not authorized. Good thing I'm with you. The door slid open with a soft, final sound. We stepped inside. The lights adjusted automatically. Cool white, flat, unforgiving. Rows of data terminals lined the walls, each one holding fragments of lives reduced to entries, flags, outcomes, order, control, clarity. That's what this place is supposed to represent. Case file, I said, moving to the nearest terminal, missing Omega. ID 44,873. Name. Dexter said. I hesitated. Then, Evan Rook. The file opened instantly. Basic profile. Movement logs. Inspection history. Status. Voluntary relocation. Clean. Closed. See? I said. No sign of coercion. No forced removal. He left. Dexter didn't respond. I could feel him behind me, though. Not close enough to trigger instinct. Just present, watching. Scroll, he said. I didn't. Liam. My jaw tightened. I know how to read a file. Then read all of it. I exhaled sharply, annoyed. I scrolled. Inspection logs filled the screen. Routine checks. Compliance confirmations. Movement authorizations. Everything in order. Everything approved. Everything. I paused. Expand that, Dexter said. I see it. Do you? I tapped the entry. A minor flag. Nothing serious. Protocol 9C. Protective monitoring. Duration. Extended. That wasn't unusual. Omegas get flagged for monitoring all the time. It's precautionary. Standard. It's clean, I said. Look at the timeline. I did. The flags weren't random. They stacked, one after another. Short durations, then longer, then overlapping. My chest tightened. That's not normal? Dexter supplied. It's within acceptable parameters. Individually, he said. I didn't answer. Because he wasn't wrong. Individually, each flag was justified. Together, they formed something else. Pull movement restrictions, he added. I hesitated, then ran the query. The data shifted, and for the first time, it didn't look clean. Every time Evan tried to move zones. Denied, delayed, redirected, every time. That's oversight, I said. Safety, regulation. That's containment. I turned. Don't what? Don't reframe this. I'm not reframing anything, Dexter said. I'm reading it. So am I. No, he said quietly. You're interpreting it the way you were trained to. Something in my chest twisted, sharp, uncomfortable. That's how analysis works. That's how conditioning works. I stepped back. Distance. Control. You're making assumptions. Then prove me wrong. Silence. I turned back to the screen. Scrolled further. Requests. Denials. Appeals. Rejected. Every single one. Pull his last inspection report, Dexter said. I did. The document opened. Formatted. Structured. Clean. Inspector ID. I froze. No, that. I leaned closer. Read it again. Then again. My own name stared back at me. Liam Carter. Inspector. Authorized signature. My breath. Hitched. Just slightly, barely noticeable. Except, I felt it. Everywhere. That's not. I started. You signed it, Dexter said. Flat. No judgment. Just fact. I don't remember this case. You don't remember a lot of them. That landed harder than anything else. Because he was right. We processed dozens, hundreds. Cases blur. Details fade. Only structure remains. I scrolled, reading, trying to find something. Anything. That justified it. Subject demonstrates elevated instability risk. Continued monitoring. Recommended. My words. My format. My decision. I followed protocol, I said. The defense came automatically. Reflex. Immediate. Dexter didn't move. Didn't react. You always do. That should have felt like agreement. It didn't. It was justified, I said. Was it? Yes. How? I opened my mouth. Stopped. Because the answer wasn't there. Not really. There was no incident. No escalation. No trigger. Just flags. Data. Recommendations. Stacked. Reinforced. Accepted. You restricted his movement, Dexter said. You limited his access. You boxed him in. That's not. You made it so leaving was the only option. No, I snapped. He chose to leave. Dexter stepped closer. Not aggressive. Not dominant. Just present. He chose between staying trapped and disappearing, he said quietly. That's not a choice. My pulse spiked. Heat flashed under my skin. Sharp. Sudden. Unwanted. No, I said again. You're twisting this. Am the first? Yes. Then explain it. I couldn't. Not cleanly. Not logically. Because the more I looked, the worse it got. The system hadn't forced him. It hadn't grabbed him. It had just made everything else impossible. My hands curled slightly at my sides. That's not what it's designed for, I said. No. Dexter agreed. It's designed to protect. Then why does it look like this? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Because I didn't want to know. Say it, he said. My jaw tightened. Say what? That it's wrong. It's not. It is. You don't understand the system. I understand exactly what it does. No, I said sharply. You don't. He held my gaze. Steady, unshaken. Then explain it to me. I tried. I really did. Pulled at the logic. The structure. The reasoning I'd built my entire career on. And for the first time, it didn't hold. The silence. Stretched. Heavy. Suffocating. You're part of this, Dexter said. The words hit. Hard. Direct. No room to deflect. No, I said immediately. Reflex. Defense. I enforce regulation. You make it possible. I maintain order. You maintain control. That's the same thing. No, he said. A beat. It's not. Something cracked. Not visibly. Not completely. Just enough. I did my job, I said. Quieter now. Less certain. Dexter's expression didn't change. That's what makes it work. I swallowed. Hard. Anger flared next. Sharp. Protective. You think you're better? I said, you break rules and call it justice? I break the ones that hurt people. That's not your decision to make. Someone has to make it. Not you. Then who? Silence. Because I didn't have an answer. Because I was supposed to be the answer. And now, I wasn't sure what that meant. I turned back to the screen. Closed the file. Locked it. Shut it down like that would erase what I'd seen. What I'd done. This doesn't prove anything, I said. It sounded weak. Even to me. Dexter didn't push. Didn't argue. Didn't press the advantage. He just stood there. Watching. Waiting. Like he knew this part couldn't be rushed. That made it worse. I followed protocol. I said again. Quieter. More to myself this time. Yeah. He said. Soft. Not mocking. Not cruel. Just honest. That's the problem. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Because for the first time, I understood what he meant. And I didn't know what to do with it. The office didn't change. That was the problem. Same glass walls. Same sterile light. Same quiet hum of systems, processing lives like they were nothing more than entries in a database. Everything exactly where it should be, except me. I walked in faster than usual, not rushed, controlled, tight. Every step measured like if I lost it for even a second, something inside me would spill out. It already was. Inspector. Someone greeted. I didn't answer. Didn't slow. Marcus was exactly where he always was, center of the floor, positioned like everything naturally aligned around him. Of course he was. Liam, he said as I approached. You're early. I reviewed the Rook file. A pause, subtle, then, and, Marcus asked. I stopped in front of him, held his gaze. He didn't leave, voluntarily. Silence, not loud, but it cut through the room anyway. Marcus didn't react immediately, didn't deny, didn't correct. He just watched me. You're basing that on? He prompted. Stacked monitoring flags, movement restrictions, rejected appeals, standard procedure. It's excessive. It's preventative. It's containment. The word landed between us. Heavy, unavoidable. Marcus's expression didn't change. That's your interpretation, he said. It's the data. It's incomplete. It's consistent. A few heads turned now. Not obvious, not direct, but enough. The room was listening. Marcus stepped closer, just enough to narrow the space. Careful, he said quietly. Not a warning, a boundary. I didn't step back. This isn't an isolated case, I continued. Enforcement patterns are not your concern. They should be. They're not. Sharp, clean, final. My jaw tightened. Why? That was the wrong question. I knew it the second it left my mouth. Marcus's gaze shifted, not away, deeper, evaluating, reassessing. You're good at your job, he said. Again, that phrase, that positioning. I follow protocol, I replied. Yes, he said. A beat. That's why this works. My chest tightened, harder this time. Works? I repeated, for maintaining order. At whose expense? Silence snapped. Tight, controlled, dangerous. Marcus didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. Control is necessary, he said. There it was. Not hidden, not softened. Stated, clear. Without it, he continued, things destabilize. Omegas. Destabilize? I asked. The words came out sharper than I intended. Marcus didn't flinch. Yes. The answer was immediate, uncomplicated, like it had never needed justification. They're more reactive, he said, more influenced by environment, emotion, instinct. I felt something in my chest drop, cold, heavy, and that justifies restriction? I asked. It justifies management. That's not the same thing. It is when the outcome is stability. My hands curled at my sides, tight, controlled, barely. They're being boxed in, I said, monitored, limited, pushed until they have no real choice. They have structure, Marcus cut in. They have less freedom. They have protection. From what? Silence. This time. He didn't answer immediately. Then. From instability, he said. The word echoed, hollow, empty, wrong. And who decides what that means? I asked. We do. Of course. Of course it was that simple. You're saying the system is designed this way, I said. Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. That's not bias. He added. That's function. Something cracked. Not small this time. Not subtle. Clean. Sharp. Final. So it's intentional, I said. Marcus studied me. For a second, something almost like disappointment flickered there. You're asking questions that aren't useful, he said. I'm asking the right ones. For the wrong reasons. I let out a breath. It felt heavier than it should have. I've been signing these reports, I said. Enforcing these restrictions. Yes. And you didn't think I should know what they actually do? You knew exactly what they do. No, I said. My voice dropped. Lower. Tighter. I knew what they were supposed to do. Marcus's gaze sharpened. That's the same thing. No, I said again. It's not. Silence. The room had gone still now. No one pretending not to listen anymore. Marcus stepped closer. Not threatening. Not aggressive. Just. Final. You were placed in this position because you're reliable, he said. Because you don't let personal bias interfere. I'm not biased. Exactly. The word landed like something precise, something calculated. You're not reactive, he continued. You don't push. You don't question unnecessarily. Unnecessarily. That word, carefully chosen. You're stable. My throat tightened. And that makes me useful, I said. Marcus didn't deny it. It makes you effective. Same thing, different wording, same meaning. I felt it then. Clear, unavoidable. Not instinct, not reaction. Understanding. I wasn't protecting anything. I was maintaining it. Every report, every decision, every clean case. I wasn't neutral. I was a tool. I was the weapon, I said quietly. Marcus didn't respond. Didn't need to, because he didn't see it that way. Because to him, this was order. This was necessary. This was right. I stepped back. Just once. Distance. Not from him. From everything. I'm not closing the veil case, I said. Marcus's expression didn't change. You don't have that authority. I'm not signing off on it. You already did. The words hit hard. Because he was right. Because it was already done. Because I turned, walked away, before I said something I couldn't take back. Rough morning? Dexter's voice cut through the hallway before I even saw him. Of course he was here. Of course. I stopped. Didn't turn immediately. Then, what are you doing here? I asked, waiting. For what? He stepped into view. Same posture, same ease, like none of this touched him. You, he said. That should have irritated me. It did. Don't, I said. Don't what? Act like you knew this would happen. I didn't, he said. A pause. I just knew you'd get there eventually. Something snapped. Sharp. Immediate. You think this is a game? I said. His expression shifted. Slightly. No. You push. You provoke. You drag things out until, what, I break? I see things your way? I show you what's already there. You manipulate the situation. I don't have to. Yes, you do. I snapped. You interfere. You step in. I stop things from getting worse. That's not your role. Neither is ignoring it. I stepped closer. Too close this time. Didn't care. You don't get to decide what's right, I said. Neither do you, he replied. Silence. Tight. Charged. Then, you're part of it, I said. The words came out before I could stop them. Ugly. Defensive. You play both sides. You break rules when it suits you, then act like you're above it. Dexter didn't react immediately. Then, you're angry, he said. Don't psychoanalyze me. I'm not. His gaze held mine. Steady. Unshaken. You're realizing something you don't like, he said. And you need somewhere to put it. That's not. You don't get to make me the problem, he added. Quiet. Firm. I'm not the one who built the system. No, I said. You just made sure it worked. That hit. Because it was true. Because I'd just heard it. Because I couldn't. You think I wanted this? I said, I think you didn't want to see it. I didn't have a reason to. You didn't look for one. Silence. I stared at him, trying to find something. Anything. To push back with, and failing. Because he wasn't wrong. Because that was the worst part. You're just as responsible, I said. We all are. The answer came too easily. Too clean. I'm doing something about it. And I'm not? He tilted his head slightly. You're deciding what that means. I am, he said. A beat. Now, that word, now, landed differently. Because it wasn't about before. It wasn't about blame. It was about choice. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Stay out of my way, I said. Dexter held my gaze for a second longer. Then, no, of course not. He stepped back, just once, then turned. walking away the same way he always did. No rush, no hesitation, like he knew exactly how this would unfold. "Dexter," I called. He didn't stop, didn't turn. "I'm not done with this," I said. That got him to pause. Just slightly, then, "I know," he said, and kept walking. I stood there, alone in the hallway, the office behind me, the system still running, still clean, still controlled, except now, I could see it, all of it, and I couldn't unsee it. My chest felt tight again. Not instinct, not fear, something else, something worse. Choice. I exhaled slowly, closed my eyes for a second, then opened them, and for the first time, I didn't know what the right thing was, only that what I'd been doing, wasn't it? The system doesn't break loudly. It hums, it processes, it continues, even when you decide to tear it apart. It started at night. Of course it did. The city always looks more honest in the dark. Less polished, less controlled. The lines blur. The rules feel thinner. Or maybe that was just me. "Say it again," Ellie whispered, her voice barely audible over the quiet hum of the terminal. "If we access the control layer," I said, keeping my tone low, "we can pull the full enforcement logs, not summaries. Raw data." Ellie glanced at the door, then back at me. "That's not access we're supposed to have." "I know. That's not a warning, Liam," she said. "That's a fact." "I know." Silence. Tight. Familiar. Then, "Okay," she said. That word hit differently this time. Not hesitation. Decision. "You're really doing this," she added, already moving, fingers flying across the interface. "Yes. Because once we open this, I know." "No," she said. Sharper now. "You don't get to say that like it's routine. This is your career, your position, everything you've built." "I know," I repeated, softer this time, because the first did. "That's why I was here." The screen flickered, layers peeled back, clean reports dissolved into something messier, raw logs, overrides, hidden flags buried under layers of protective structure, and suddenly, it wasn't subtle anymore. Clusters of omega restrictions, escalations without cause, movement locks tied to nothing but internal classification, control, not protection, control. Ellie stopped typing. "This is bad," she said. "It's worse than that." Because it wasn't just one case. It was all of them. Structured, intentional, systemic. My chest tightened. But not like before. Not panic. Not confusion. Clarity. "Can you extract it?" I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "I can, but if this gets flagged, it will, yeah, a beat." "Okay." She started the transfer. Slow, careful, precise. This wasn't just data anymore. This was evidence. The kind that doesn't get ignored. The kind that forces change. Or gets buried. The door opened. We both froze. 2 officers stepped in. Routine check. Wrong time. Wrong place. "Inspection?" one of them asked. Eyes narrowing slightly. "System audit," I said immediately, stepping forward just enough to block the view of the screen. Authority, confidence, control. It still worked. For now. "Unscheduled?" the second officer asked. "Yes." Silence. A calculation. Then, "Keep it short," he said. "Marcus is already asking questions." Of course he was. They left. The door closed. Ellie exhaled. "Okay," she whispered. That was focus, I said. Not harsh. Just needed. The progress bar ticked forward. Too slow. Always too slow when it matters. "Almost there," Ellie said. The system flickered. Then, complete. We both stared at it for a second. Then, "What now?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately, because this was the part no protocol covered, no structure, no guidance, just choice. "Now," I said slowly, "we make it impossible to ignore. The control center wasn't meant to be accessed like this. Not directly, not without clearance, not without permission, which I no longer needed. The main console lit up as we approached, the system recognizing my credentials automatically, still trusting me, still assuming I was part of it. That almost made me laugh. Last chance to stop, Ellie said quietly. I didn't look at her. If I stop now, nothing changes. And if you don't, everything does. Exactly. I uploaded the data, linked it to public channels, internal review boards, external oversight. Everywhere it couldn't be quietly erased. Ellie held her breath beside me. Liam, I know. The system processed, paused, then released. Just like that. No alarms, no shutdown, just exposure. The quiet kind, the kind that spreads, the kind that can't be pulled back. That's it, Ellie whispered. Yeah, a beat. That's it. The doors opened behind us. I didn't turn, didn't need to. I knew who it was. Inspector, Marcus said. Calm, measured, controlled. Always controlled. I faced him. He looked exactly the same. Unshaken, unbothered, like nothing had changed. Except, it had. What did you do? He asked. Fixed a blind spot. His gaze sharpened. You released restricted data. I released the truth. That's not your decision to make. It should have been. Silence stretched. Not tense, not loud, just final. You've compromised the system, Marcus said. No, I replied. I exposed it. A flicker. Not emotion, not quite. Something closer to recalculation. You don't understand the consequences. I do. Then you chose them anyway. Yes. Another pause. Longer this time. Then. You're done here, Marcus said. There it was. Clean. Simple. Predictable. I know. You could have stayed where you were, he added. Maintained your position. At what cost? Stability. For who? Silence. He didn't answer. Because he didn't need to. Because we both knew. Good luck with that, I said, and walked past him. The city air hit differently outside. Colder, sharper, real, no glass, no filters, no structure pressing in from every side, just space. I exhaled slowly, letting it settle, for the first time in a long time. My chest didn't feel tight. Bold move. I didn't turn immediately. Didn't need to. Thought you were staying out of my way, I said. Dexter stepped up beside me, hands in his pockets, like always. I said I wouldn't, he replied. Fair. We stood there for a second, side by side. No pressure, no tension, just quiet. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yes, I did. No, he said. You chose to. I glanced at him. That's the same thing. He smiled. No, he said softly. It's not. A pause. Then, you okay? He asked. I almost laughed. Almost. I just dismantled part of a system I spent years enforcing. I said, what do you think? I think, he said, you look like someone who can finally breathe. I blinked. That wasn't the answer I expected. Maybe, I admitted. Silence settled again, lighter this time, less sharp. So, I said after a moment. What now? Dexter tilted his head slightly, considering. Well, he said. You're not an inspector anymore. Technically, practically too. Good. That slipped out before I could stop it. He caught it immediately. Good? He repeated. I shrugged. Less paperwork. He laughed. Short, real. Yeah, he said. Can't argue with that. I looked out at the city. Different now. Or maybe I was. You're still going to break rules, aren't you? I said, only the bad ones. That's subjective. So is protocol. I exhaled, shook my head. You're exhausting. He grinned. You're welcome. I glanced at him, measured, assessing, and for the first time, not trying to categorize, not trying to control, just seeing. You're not what I expected, I said. Yeah, he replied. I get that a lot. That's not a compliment. I'll survive. A beat, then. You're not what I expected either, he added. I frowned slightly. That's impossible. Is it? Yes. He smiled again. That same calm, certain expression. Thought you were predictable, he said. I am. Boring, even. I narrowed my eyes. Careful. He laughed. See? There it is. What? Not boring. I looked away. Because that felt like something I wasn't ready to define. Don't get used to it, I said. Too late. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't tight. It wasn't something I needed to control. It just was. I shifted slightly, turning back toward him. You're still under review, I said. Am the first? Yes. He tilted his head. By who? I paused. Then, me, I said. He grinned. Dangerous. I mean it. I know. A beat. Then, should I be worried? I considered that, honestly. Then, not yet, I said. He laughed again, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a disruption. It felt like something starting, not structured, not defined, not controlled. Better, come on, he said, pushing off the railing. Let's go. Where? Anywhere without protocols. I hesitated, just for a second. Then, I followed, because for the first time, I wasn't enforcing the system. I wasn't maintaining order. I wasn't a weapon. I was choosing, and that felt a lot more dangerous, and a lot more right.